Priti Patel.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. May I open my remarks, Madam Deputy Speaker, by welcoming you back to the chair and say how wonderful it is to hear you as well as see you today in robust form. Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, as a former Treasury Minister, I understand the challenges that my right honourable friend, the Chancellor, and his Treasury colleagues and all the officials have been confronted with and faced with, and the lobbying, the relentless lobbying from the backbenches as well, that they have faced in putting this important budget together. And I do actually want to pay tribute to them all, and to my right honourable friend, the Chancellor in particular. That work and the work that takes place in balancing the different and contrasting interests and representations received is difficult and it is challenging. And of course, no budget will please everyone. There's no doubt about that. And there are always more demands for more resources, more simplicity, and I could read off a list, but I'm not just going to do that right now. But importantly, the key tests for any budget are whether it ensures that there's a robust framework in place for sound money. And of course, that is exactly what this party in government stands for. We do believe in sound money, we do believe in balancing the books, and we believe in growing our economy and giving the people the freedom to succeed through many of the measures my right honourable friend the Chancellor has spoken about today. And of course, that includes whether it maintains a strong fiscal position and stability, and whether it delivers fiscal and supply-side reforms to enable, of course, the private sector to grow and flourish. And, of course, my right friend the Chancellor has also mentioned a former Chancellor today, of course, Lord Lawson, who did exactly that. And those pillars are absolutely fundamental to the health and well-being and the integrity of any sound policy, whether it's fiscal or monetary, behind growing the economy, which then leads to supporting new jobs, creating wealth in our country to sustain public services. And I think on that point, I think we should all just dwell upon, that comment in relation to what the parties opposite are advocating, which would lead to greater instability and, I'm afraid, more debt. Without getting too party political at this early stage of my remarks. And I do believe that this budget has combined many of those elements. Bear in mind, we still face the challenges of the pandemic, global inflationary pressures which have disrupted our economy, and sometimes I do feel that in this House in particular, perhaps parties opposite fail to realise the extent of that disruption and the displacement that has led to in terms of the fiscal position of our government. And that is very significant. And what I have to say I like to see, and I have seen today, is that the government is not fearful when it comes to pursuing an ambitious pro-growth agenda that does seek to reduce tax burden. I'm going to come on to that shortly. But this budget also makes progress towards a good direction. And there are a few areas that I will come on to when it comes to economic growth. This being a budget for growth, and that is also about investment in people, our economy, and the long-term future of our country. First of all, Madam Deputy Speaker, I would like to ask the Chancellor, and he's heard me on this, and I'm very grateful, I'm personally grateful to him on this, to continue to keep the wider approach to corporation tax under review. I've absolutely heard what the Chancellor has said today in terms of the tax incentives that are going to be put in place at £9 billion, which I understand will be tapered, depending on businesses and their level of investments. And I think there is an important message here that we all know. It's a message that maybe we have not spoken about enough. Many businesses, not all businesses, because it depends on their sizes, have been sitting on vast levels of investment that they've not had the confidence to actually release for investment purposes, and I have no doubt that today's measures will absolutely lead to that. But as an Essex MP, where we represent, the bulk of small and medium-sized businesses, they are the ones that we have to think of, and we must be putting out the hand of support to them in particular. Our country, thanks to previous policies under Conservative governments, has led to the flowering of many, many thousands, millions of SMEs. I come from that background myself. There are so many others that do. We need them to be the lifeblood to our economy and also to grow jobs and employment in this country. But of course, taxing on profits of businesses, the increase in corporation tax, the changes that have been brought in, will seem attractive, but obviously the devil will be in the detail, and of course we must continue to work through that. And there is nothing that we want to do in terms of frustrating business investment. We believe in growth, and that is absolutely why, and I was delighted to hear the Chancellor go back to 2010, actually, to remind this House and the country of what we faced back then, the struggles, the difficulties, but that became the start to the cuts in corporation tax to help businesses grow. And of course, that is effectively the overall direction of travel that was supported on this side, which the other side obviously had quite a different legacy. I do believe that there is more that we can do in unleashing a wave of pro-growth business reforms and transform our economy even more, particularly post-Brexit. Britain post-Brexit is about, yes, international partnerships, bilateral agreements, but also showing that we are the place to come and invest, leveraging our markets, our capital markets in particular, demonstrating that we have the financial capabilities to continue to grow, but also get that investment back into our country. And I do believe, just on the issue of corporation tax, when it comes to the wider prospectus of the minimum rates of corporation tax, which my right honourable friend the Chancellor has heard me out on many times, and other colleagues, we know that the introduction of the minimum effective tax rate will be delayed in Washington and other countries, and I would just ask him again to think carefully about the timing of this. Why now? Let us absolutely focus on the budgetary measures he's announced today and ensure that that does everything possible to unleash the business potential and the economic growth that we desperately want to see and rightly want to see. So I will continue to work with him on that issue. But I do just want to, of course, mention everything that has been announced today when it comes to enterprise zones, unlocking potentials of our countries, different regions in our economy, particularly, again, through levelling up, but also when it comes to the tax deductions will be absolutely vital. And I absolutely believe that that will help in terms of future capital investment and further supply side reforms that help to basically build our infrastructure, invest in people, see jobs being dispersed around the country in a way we've never seen before, well, certainly not, in my lifetime in this Parliament, but actually generationally as well is absolutely crucial. It really is. And so I'm delighted with the work and the announcements today when it comes to pensions, lifetime tax allowances, childcare in particular. And I say that as actually I was the Treasury Minister that worked back in the day to bring in tax-free childcare. And again, I think it is important that we focus on, in particular, those low-income households, those that struggle actually to get their foot on the ladder when it comes to childcare, but also even getting sustainable employment. And having been the former employment minister, and I did work obviously with the Right Honourable gentleman, our Right Honourable friend for Chingford and Woodford Green at the time, DWP, we saw so many challenges with the introduction of universal credit. We wanted to make reforms to work capability assessments. These are going to be vital labour market reforms that will help to get more people back into work. And I absolutely endorse the Chancellor's work on that and colleagues across the government as well. He will not be surprised that I do want to welcome his announcement today on freezing fuel duty and keeping the reduction that was brought in last year. And of course, my right honourable friend will understand the difficulties and actually the pressures, household budgets. He has spoken about that very strongly today. Being on the side of hard-pressed motorists, hard-pressed taxpayers, we have to stand up for them, and times have been tough on that. We know, of course, about the implications around, the forecast actually in November's OBR report alone did bring concerns to families, and the headroom that has now transpired is welcome, and this is an important welcome and a great buffer, I think, for motorists, but actually for the country. And keeping fuel duty down, of course, is going to help the government meet its ambitious targets in terms of reducing inflation. Everybody wants to see inflation come down for the right reasons. That is, again, how we grow the economy. And this will save the hard-pressed families hundreds of pounds a year, but including businesses. And again, when we look at logistics firms, I represent Whittam. We are full of logistic firms. We have ports surrounding us now. We're very proud of our ports. We're proud of the work that they do. They will absolutely be benefit from this. And we have a proud record in supporting the nation's motorists. For 13 years, it's a record we should always remind everyone across the country, and supporting, of course, those hard-pressed motorists as well. And that, of course, compares to what we've seen in previous governments. I do think, though, families and businesses in London and Essex and the surrounding areas will look at what we've done on fuel duty against what the Mayor of London is proposing on ULEZ. And I think that is absolutely somewhere else. That is a charge that will hit low-income families. And of course, while Conservatives are constantly tackling those issues around high taxes, this is absolutely the right challenge we should be pushing out as well. Madam Deputy Speaker, I would just like to make a few other observations. One is on infrastructure, and to comment on the needs of infrastructure, and of course that is down to supply-side reforms in particular. Essex is a county of entrepreneurs, and of course our road network is absolutely vital. My right honourable friend has heard me speak about the A120, the A12, all those fantastic roads that I'm afraid are gridlocked. We need the wider investment because that's the only way we keep our haulages moving, our motorists travelling, but in particular making sure that our transport is fit for the future. And that does come from Treasury investment as well. I'm going to conclude my remarks, Madam Deputy Speaker, in the interest of time, but I do commend my right honourable friend, the Chancellor, for the way in which he has approached this budget. He said to me last year, we will have a budget for growth. He is true to his word. There'll be areas where I would like to follow up with him and ministers, but I do want to thank him for the way in which he's engaged very constructively. Listen to commuters, listen to motorists, listen to the voice of Essex as well, but others around the country.
Yeah.